We're going to go through year by year of every single release of Space Marines in 2nd edition.
Back in the day, that thing was just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what a model. With the banner pole that always used to bend.
I love the cope on this. You're like, yeah, this was amazing. I mean, it fell apart and it was
Let's talk
horrible
about
put
all
together.
its flaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the state of that.
That's an amazing model.
Look at it.
It's an amazing model.
So beautiful.
Look,
See that across the
He
battlefield.
gives 0. He's drive-bying someone, not even looking.
But it's not boys in the hood. It's 40k.
I can't sit here and go that they're better than the plastics today. They weren't, and I'll be honest with you about that. However...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paint Perspective, episode 107, sponsored by Everything Airbrush. If you need new airbrush, bundles, supplies for your existing airbrush, link in the description. Great guys over there. We've done 3rd edition. Now we're doing 2nd edition. It's every single Space Marine. And, I guess actually it's going to be you two reviewing every single Space Marine and me telling you why you're wrong.
This is our time, isn't it? This is the out
Caveat
era.
immediately, everything that George says in this episode is going to be wrong.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Joe was supposed to be on this week and he was going to back me up, but we've had a last-minute substitution. So.
Yeah. I'm on. I got you, Jen.
Bit of a Subutio moment. Gave you just walked by you this morning and said, Joe's not here. Gave you a
You're
little flick on the shoulder, like Subutio.
Get in there.
Subbed you straight in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for anyone who remembers Subutio.
Paul, you've been up to some painting, as per
No
usual.
good, yeah, in the heat. Yeah, well, I think last time we was on, I got to have a little look at the Trench Crusade models that Jane you brought in, and I thought these prints actually look pretty good. So I'll have a go at one, and I did.
Bosh one out.
2.5 hours.
I told you they're pretty quick to paint, aren't they?
I purposely thought I don't want to spend all day doing it. A, because it was like 1 billion degrees where I was sitting, and B, I just thought these models do lend themselves to just being painted relatively quickly, and you get some quite good results anyway. So yeah, that's what I did. I did
have a cheeky look on socials and saw
of course,
it.
I went on the old Instagram. That's so that was what I popped that on there.
How many followers you got on Instagram now?
Well, the big 411 now.
The big 411. I'll tell you what, everyone, band together. Let's get Paul to 1,000 followers. Link in the description for Paul's Instagram.
I think I had about 98 in January. So yeah, it is skyrocketing at the moment. No, but the more people that join, the more I feel I need to put stuff on there. But I haven't painted anything since Iron Skull. So this was quite a nice little
palette cleanser.
Little get in there and throw something together. About 2.5 hours that took.
Yeah, it's good.
Including drying times, which were very quick in this heat anyway. So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. Whacked some transfers from an old Sisters of Battle sheet that I had in the drawer.
No dirty down, mate. What's going on?
There is. You're just not looking close enough.
Okay. I thought it was going to be flooded with it.
There is. If you look closely on the armour, there is dirty down.
Okay.
The problem with dirty down is like he's quite a small little chap, and if you put too big a blobs on it, it's just going to look like a rusty blob with a face. So I just I didn't feel like I needed to put too much on.
No,
there.
fair.
I thought that effect is good enough.
Fair.
I quite enjoy painting
Tactical transfer as well, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, borrowed that from another range, didn't you?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I was going to. George tried to get me to say I freehanded it, but I thought no, that's dishonest.
Yeah.
So I just put a transfer
honest
on it.
painting and hobbying on this.
The
podcast.
only thing I wasn't too keen
You
on.
said that implying that I'm dishonest with my painting.
Oh, well, there may or may not have been some models with the backs not painted in the past.
Yeah.
But, we'll keep that on the low.
The only thing I didn't really enjoy was these bases that they're on.
Yeah.
They said they tend to. I think the bases are printed at a different gauge or whatever.
Different layer heights.
Well, yeah.
I have no idea.
So I'm going to chime in on that. There is not. I mean, we spoke about. If you haven't seen the Trench Crusade episode, that was a few weeks back. Go have a look at that on the channel. But we spoke about the models. That is one thing I didn't speak about. Not because I didn't want to say anything critical. I hadn't actually seen the bases. We only had the models on the table. And looking at them, I'm going to be honest. Like, why would you make they're unbelievably bad by comparison?
Yeah, they were.
The layer height is really, really high.
That flew over my head like the red arrows. I literally have no idea. I have no idea what you mean by that.
Well, if you look at these bases, look, it looks like a whole bunch of very thin bases stacked one on top of the other. Then.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't.
Yours might not have been so bad.
Mine were.
Yeah.
I literally. I'm going to need to look at. Hang on a sec.
I didn't even notice it.
I'm going to just live on the show. I'm going to have a look at the base on the one that
I don't think yours was that bad because I would have noticed.
Oh, I know why that is.
You gave me a dodgy one, did you?
No, I used the Games Workshop base.
I didn't.
I use the Games Workshop base.
I
I'll be
that's what I
honest.
should have
Is that
done.
because you
Yeah.
changed the size, or
Yeah, because no, I didn't change the size. I had those trench bases, didn't I? So I had some pre-made trench bases.
right, that makes sense.
So that's
now.
why. That's
Okay.
why.
An unintentional.
Unintentional tactical
Yeah.
sub out. Another Sabutio moment.
I didn't even
realise.
notice until I was painting.
Looks like we're all pretty dishonest. About
Yeah.
I didn't
painting this
realise.
week.
I totally didn't realise. I was like, layer height. What the hell are they on about? I got no idea.
I didn't notice until I started to try and paint the rim of the base. I thought that's completely different to the miniature. And
Yeah. You could sand it, but you shouldn't really have to, should you,
well,
in this day and age?
I thought if I'd have noticed that after, I didn't even notice it when I sculpted the little base on there. So I thought next time I'll swap it out for a GW base. The same scale, sort of same size.
That could
Yeah.
stand to be improved, though, couldn't it? Like quite.
That could be an
significantly.
improvement. Yeah.
That looks to me like it was FDM printed, whereas the miniature is obviously
I have.
SLA.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're on about, but yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But,
yeah, fine.
But yeah, the miniature was great. I really enjoyed painting the little miniature. there was a couple of spots where print lines you could very faintly see them, but overall,
I had
it
the
was
same
great.
thing on the upper where I wrote the name on the upper chest of the mech armor. Like you could. It's only when you move it in the light that you can see it. So,
Yeah.
Can I make a counter argument? If you had a regular miniature, like a GW sprue injection molded model, you would have to clean off loads of mold lines. So there's always going to be some sort of casting cleanup. Whereas in this case, because it's 3D printed, you don't have the mold lines. You might have the occasional layer line, but you could still sand that and smooth it out, much like you would with.
I was
a mold
hoping
line.
that once I'd hit it a few times with an undercoat can, and then I've done all the airbrush work, that it wouldn't be visible. But I think I was a bit thin with some of my. Maybe I put a bit of a thinner prime on it before I airbrushed it. But I don't know why I did that, to be honest, because there's not on those mech armor suits. There's not like loads of hard detail. It's quite
They're kind of nice and soft.
nice
aren't
and
they?
soft.
curves.
So yeah, maybe I should just hit it a bit more.
But then again, these are primarily like gaming miniatures, aren't they?
yeah, I
So-
still think they're paint. I still think I've seen plenty of people that have painted them and they've come out amazing. So
Yeah.
It's also
So-
relative to how much you care about this little
Minor
nitpicky
thing.
bits.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
only a minor thing, isn't it? Yeah.
just replace the base if you don't like the print lines.
That's what I was thinking I'll do for the next one. But I definitely.
for the next one.
Yeah,
so you're
I'll
gonna do
do-
another.
Well, I pre-ordered
Oh,
an observer.
Oh,
the
amazing.
kind of guy with like the robot-y kind of weird.
Oh, yeah,
sort of-
yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of got like the head from the probe droid out of Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's got a nice big cape and stuff. So I've ordered one of those. So that will appear in July at some point when that's good to go.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll have a go at that.
Did you use our link in the video to do it?
What to pre-order?
Yeah, did you?
Of course I did. Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Smooth being dishonest now.
Fair. See, I've been doing stuff, but if you want to find out about it, it's on Patreon. So yeah, it's top secret. It's very, very hush hush. I'm keeping it hush. Yeah, not saying any more about
Convenient.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've been painting something though, George. haven't
Oh,
you?
well, speaking of Patreon,
Yeah.
no, I've been, well, I guess past painted, but we just released the Power Sword segment of the Retributor Space Marine tutorial. So that's kind of like part 2. So if you haven't seen that on the channel, it came out on Friday. I don't know if people realize we plug all of the Patreon stuff in these episodes as we would, but there are free versions of the tutorials that we do that come out on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and they'll come out on there. So we've done the Retributor Space Marine tutorial masterclass that we did a couple of months back. We segmented out just painting the Power Sword because it was quite technical, and I thought it'd be a nice little standalone video.
I think it's something that people always want to learn how to paint as
Exactly,
well as paint
yeah.
those power swords and power
Yeah.
weapons. So
Good
so
detailed
yeah.
tutorial.
Didn't want to kind of like, I know there's this whole thing with like putting it behind like a paid format or whatever, but I think that as a little free tutorial is actually a really great one. Do you know what I mean?
Well, like I said,
So-
all of the videos, there'll be a free version, and you can learn, loads from it. There'll just be additional colors and additional guidance and tips and stuff. So, as an example, I think that Retributor Space Marine video that went on YouTube, it was like 20, 25 minutes, something like that. And the Patreon version was like an hour. And
Yeah.
I go like a lot more into detail, and you see all of the additional colors and stuff. But like I said, if you want to just catch the free versions on YouTube, then go for it. Check them out.
gives you a little taste of what's behind the veil, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited for the next one, actually. I've just finished painting the next video, which I can't speak about yet, but it'll be...
It looks Tony the Tiger. So yeah. No,
Great.
exactly. There you go.
I was like, well, it's not orange.
It's got black and orange stripes. I thought I've seen it this morning. I thought I don't remember it looking orange. Yeah.
What if I told you you can easily take your miniature bases to the next level? Well, now you can with the new basing products from Siege Scenics. Siege Scenics is dedicated to helping you create immersive and realistic environments for your miniatures that feel alive and dynamic, whether you're setting the stage for an epic tabletop battle or telling a rich, unfolding story with your competition display. From the warm hues of autumn to the crisp frost of winter, Siege Scenics has you covered with expertly crafted products that capture the ever-changing beauty of nature and bring it straight to your miniatures. To see the full collection and place your order now, head to siegescenics.co.uk or check the link in this episode's description. Should we get to the topic then? So, we're reviewing every single Space Marine from 2nd edition. So, you might have seen on the channel a few weeks back. I think it was episode 99 because the joke was it was 1999. But so, it's episode 107. So, what was it like in 97?
Yeah, that works.
1993.
No,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. We see it's episode 107. So we're connecting the dots of 1993. It's right there.
The glory days.
Oh, see, I'm in the minority here.
I'm home, is all I'm going to say. I read the comments on the 99 episodes, and there's a lot of people saying that they.
You weren't on that episode.
I know,
were you? Yeah.
I know. I have parachuted straight in for this one.
Deployed
for this
we
one.
deployed the James.
They're gonna have to band with me in the comments because
They're definitely not George.
I'm gonna get rinsed here.
You're going to get rinsed, and I'm going to say this. Like, Paul, I'm glad you're here.
Well, this is, catching balls into egg cups, knocking hoops down the road with sticks, and 2nd edition.
I mean,
this is what we're doing.
I didn't see the link up. I definitely didn't do that as a child, but yeah.
You used to ride your penny farthing to the GW store.
They were the days.
Yeah.
The way this is going to work, it's going to be very much like the previous episode. So we're going to go through year by year of every single release of Space Marines in 2nd edition, and we're just going to chat about some notable entries.
Newest to oldest, or oldest to newest?
We'll do oldest to newest.
Yes,
I think.
great start.
So we're coming off the back of Rogue Trader. This is kind of like the first real edition of 40K.
Rogue Trader was a funny one because it was just before when I got into it. But from my understanding of it, and you can correct me in the comments, it was more of there was a way of playing the game, but the book, a Rogue Trader book, I've obviously got a copy of it, but like it was more like an in-depth RPG, if that makes sense.
Wasn't it off the back of D&D and those kind of games?
It's just Games Workshop made.
No, wouldn't it have been Space Hulk and all that?
So Citadel started. They made miniatures for D&D, and then they created their own games, and then wanted to do a sci-fi version, which is where kind of like 40K came from. But yeah, Rogue Trader. If you've ever picked up, I mean, they've reissued the Rogue Trader book on several occasions, GW, which is great to get reissues of it. It's really in depth. Like 2nd edition was known for being like an in-depth edition, like a very in-depth, which was amazing. But Rogue Trader was even more so, I think. And we've seen 40K get, I say, less complex, but whether it's considered less complex now is another thing, but
I'd argue more streamlined is certainly their aim.
Yeah, definitely.
It's more reading to do, more looking in books.
Yeah, but like the old Rogue Trader and like 2nd edition were like very heavy with like the rulage, if that's a word.
It is now.
Yeah, it is now. So you could field armies and do that, but I think 2nd edition was where like armies really sort of like came into the forefront, especially with the 2nd edition box, obviously with the Orcs and the Blood Angels in it.
Would you play? I know you got into Warhammer in 2nd ed, but was you playing 40K?
No. So in 2nd ed?
Yeah.
So
you played as well?
Yeah. So my friend Tom, you both know Tom. He does a lot of stuff for us. Me and him used to come around after school. We used to literally just play like 2nd edition with like pencil cases and boxes as hills and like all this kind of stuff. Like you're a veteran when you're using stationery for scenery. And, so
Battle of the Adidas.
It was literally
Adidas
like
Hill.
I had one of those pencil cases that was like an extra large Coke can, and then like that would be like a tower or something. So those were the days. So yeah, I remember that very fondly. But yeah, I digress. So the first couple of Space Marines.
Millennium.
Remember Dark Millennium?
It was just a box full of cards and books.
I know.
And you bought it, and then you had
the miniatures.
No miniatures.
No, but that was
like war gear in there.
Yeah, but that was
like you could have a 2,000 point army, spend 1,950 points, and then spend the last 50 on war gear, which was these cards.
Yeah.
So you'd flick through about 5 million cards, and each card was worth.
You pick the most broken cards.
I think that stuck around to an extent because I remember when I got into Kill Team the 2019 edition, which I think might be the second version, that had the same sort of thing where you could spend points on random guff.
Whatever your gaming table, whatever size, it looked like a game of Monopoly with all cards tucked around it.
It was amazing, honestly. Absolutely.
Oh my God,
Absolutely. Well, cards are back because you do have card decks in the new the new editions. You do have. I don't think cards have ever gone
Aren't
away.
they kind of like a bit more of like a cheat sheet for you though, the cards now?
Well,
rather than having to haul around
I can't really speak. I'm not the hashtag pro gamer. He's not here obviously in this episode.
Joe's off, isn't he?
But what I would say is that like back in the day, yeah, you're quite right. You could, because I remember like having like captains, and then you'd get like Digilaser upgrade card, or like the you know all these different bits
extra. You can have an extra
vortex grenade,
throw on
the
your
best grenade
armor
ever.
So you had the big template for the vortex.
Used to move around. It was like the proverbial 40k board.
It was a black hole, basically.
It was a Hoover. It literally used to go around and just suck into oblivion anything that came near it. Yeah, it was great.
So good.
I remember that. George is like, "What the hell?"
Did you take something before we started this?
No, this is
how good second edition was.
Let's calm down. Let's calm it down.
Take a breath,
one
everyone.
game
would just take all weekend.
Yeah, you just got to realise how good it was.
Great time.
So yeah, anyway, the first couple of models obviously that we're going to look at are actually from the collection of armor marks. So I thought this was quite interesting as a set of models because
this kind of still exists today.
I don't know I think this set is now discontinued, but I'm sure I've seen it with them. Like, they've done like what is it where they hash out old sculpts and do them for a small period of time,
like a re-release.
Yeah, like a re-release,
like a limited run.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So basically that set of models, it's really interesting because in '93 you kind of saw the different Space Marine armor marks before any of the Horus Heresy was ever done, like the Forge World stuff. So like again, you get Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, and then obviously Mark V armor. So which is really great to see. I love that set of models, especially because that's where I kind of like. Very first time I ever got like super into like Maximus Pan, so Mark IV armor is like my favorite Space Marine armor. It always has been, and I think quite widely it is quite a popular armor, Mark IV. And you can kind of see that in a lot of the design aesthetics with like Primaris. If you look at Mark IV, the helmet's quite similar in some aspects, and like I think Mark IV is
the little knee pads
is seen as like quite a popular armor mark.
I'm so desperate for them to modernize the Mark IV kit. I think it's the last one left now.
Maybe, yeah, because that came out. That Mark IV came out in the one of the early heresy boxes.
Yeah, so there's like a modern plastic version of the Mark IV kit, but since the relaunch of Horus Heresy with Age of Darkness stuff, they've started. So they've done the Mark VI, obviously with the launch of Age of Darkness. Then they've redone Mark III. We're getting Mark II with the Saturnine stuff. So we're waiting on Mark IV.
Mark IV, like Maximus pattern, is like literally my favorite armor. I've always liked it. That or Errant Mark VIII, but you don't really see much of that. But and that's why I think I actually do really like the Primaris.
No love for the Mark VI, the beakies.
No, I mean, the Raven Guard. We won't say anymore. But no. So obviously '93, you got those 4 models. Let's dive into '95. Which is the year of colour,
summer of fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna natter on this for quite some time. I'm just gonna pre-warn people listening and watching this right now.
This is like you guys' Woodstock.
This is.
Was you there?
You weren't there, man. You didn't see it.
You don't even know, man.
Yeah, you didn't even know. Yeah. My God, the amount of stuff that came out in '95.
So this is where, according to Lexicanum, this is when the Ultramarines Codex dropped.
Yep.
And it would appear that alongside it. So did a lot of Space Marines releases.
I'm not gonna. I feel like it's an injustice to group some of these together and overlook some of these. But there are so many models that came out in '95. So let's just start with, in my opinion, the most iconic model that I think Games Workshop have ever released, which is the classic paperweight Dreadnought on a square base when it first came out.
I don't think he had a base, did he?
No, it had a square base.
Did he have a square base?
I don't think it came with a base, James.
Well, when it first came out.
Because I remember having to make a base out of MDF.
No, you're right. Sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah. So at first it didn't. Then it came with a square base. And then it was only when the plastic Dreadnought
That's right.
that came out in third edition,
which we spoke
came-
about
which
on
we
the
spoke
last episode.
Yeah. I love this Dreadnought. I remember
Very
many
cool.
times. Do you know this is the Dreadnought, or I say this is Dreadnought. This is the model where my little hobby hack of cross hatching on metal models. That's where I got it from. Because back in the day when you stuck the arms on that thing,
Go on, James. Mid-episode hobby hack.
So back in the day, sticking the arms on this thing, the arms themselves weighed a ton.
They did, yeah.
like,
Need 2 people to lift them on.
I don't call it a paperweight for no reason, okay? But so this is where like I would get a knife and like where the 2 bits of material contacted, I would cross hatch with the knife and scratch do loads of like not really deep recesses, but just scratch loads. So when I put the super glue on the parts, it would sink into the things and
It's
it
gonna
would
bite
bite into it and lock it, and it would stick a lot quicker, helping it set and not droop. Because you used to see so many of these models where someone stuck it on and the gun gradually just slipped.
I think every time I took this to my friend's house, the gun obviously had fallen off and was rattling around in the box somewhere, so I had to sort of squish it back on.
In your
again.
little foam case.
Yeah, my GW black and hard plastic case with the foam trays.
Yeah, it was good. And then, so we obviously had the standard Space Marine Dreadnought, with the banner pole that always used to bend.
It did. It was always over here somewhere.
You're really selling it to me, guys. It's clearly sound.
It was great. I mean, like it was great.
It was good.
I
love the cope. I love the cope on this. You're like, yeah, this was amazing. I mean, it fell apart. And it was
Let's talk
horrible to
about
put
all its
together.
flaws.
Yeah, it was. But in general, like this. You look at that Dreadnought kit now, and that model now, and it's tiny compared to the likes of Redemptor or any of the Forge World ones or whatever. However, back in the day, that thing was just amazing.
Yeah.
Like what a model. And I've seen one of these at Golden Demon painted up like fantastic, like almost near on box art, if not more, like from back in the day. And like it was amazing. Just it's like an injection of nostalgia. Like it's just amazing. Like we'll move on to another amazing model, which was the Landspeeder. The Landspeeder, the bathtub, the flying bathtub.
Yeah.
Look at the state of that.
That's an amazing model.
Look at it.
It's
So
an amazing
bright,
model.
So beautiful.
Look,
See that across the
He
battlefield.
gives 0. He's drive-bying someone, not even looking. Like, look how good that model is. It's fantastic.
It's not boys in the hood. It's 40k.
He's got the Super Soaker Flamer. Look at the Super Soaker Flamer. Like, it's amazing.
The flight stand is straining literally under the weight of it.
Yeah. You can see the excess glue just to hold it on. Yeah, like it's
gone foggy
like,
and everything.
It was a bit of a difficult kit to put together. It was a harder kit to put together, being honest. But once you got it on that flight stand, again, I'm sorry to drop the hacks, but pinning, that's where, for me, pinnings came from. I literally, all these little hacks, okay, you can all thank second edition for these, okay? That's because this is where they came from.
Because you needed to do it.
100%.
It was the bare
There was
minimum.
no other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no other way.
Unfortunately, you didn't have paint perspective back in the 90s to
There's
teach
barely
all
any
these
internet.
tricks.
Yeah,
back
but
then.
I've got to say, like, the other thing, like, again, if you weren't of that era or you're not of the same vintage of Paul and myself, and like you weren't familiar with going into a Games Workshop shop, because they were called Games Workshop rather than Warhammer back in those days.
That's a fairly recent rebrand, to be fair.
Yeah.
Probably the last 5 years, maybe.
Yeah,
something
I
like
still
that.
call it
Games
Yeah,
Workshop,
I still
yeah.
call it GW Games Workshop. But yeah, the shops are amazing. Like the red carpet, it was beginning of the red era. Like, and I love the red era, like for obvious reasons, because red's a favorite color. But like in general, like the red era was amazing. So
It was about around this time that I worked for Games Workshop
oh wow, awesome.
in the shop in
Okay.
Southend.
in Southend. Oh right, okay.
It wasn't. You know where it is now.
Yeah.
It was on the
other
opposite side of the road.
I know. Yeah, where Pizza Hut was on the corner.
Yeah.
And then I remember
That's
that.
why I used to work
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah,
Used to work in there. It was so great.
yeah,
So good.
And like you go in
Hello,
there,
sir. What are you after today?
all of the
All the old patter.
all the boxes, the colours of all the old boxes was just fantastic. Like, you know, like then we've got obviously some Terminators, so metal Terminators, and I've got to say this: the thing I miss most, I think, that I used to love going in and just looking for hours, and I think it's a bit of right now you can just go in and obviously pick up any box really quickly in the shop, but I think
know what you're gonna say.
one of the things that I used to love was just standing in front of the rack of blisters and just looking through all the blisters.
It's so good.
And I think that's
Giving them a little shake.
I think
get all the
that's-
little bits out.
yeah,
So you can see 'em.
I think that's something that I miss most is like looking at all the blisters and then like just looking through the different selections of stuff that was there. because I think it used to captivate you and go through
That
stuff.
was the 90s version of scrolling.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, literally it was. Yeah, in the shop.
You couldn't scroll it. There was no scrolling because you either went to the shop to buy them or you ordered them out of the back of the GW mag.
GW mag, yeah.
Big news, some huge updates have arrived to the Siege Studios Patreon to give you brand new perks and includes even more bonus content. Our refreshed tiers include extended ad-free episodes of this podcast, including our new post show, extended masterclass video tutorials with bonus tips and techniques, invitations to hobby hangouts with us, exclusive Discord channels, and of course, instant access to hundreds of easy-to-follow, step-by-step PDF tutorials updated every single month. And you can even get dedicated video feedback of your miniatures with our critique clinic, so you'll always know what skills you need to improve next. So what are you waiting for? Take the next leap in miniature painting and improve your skills for the same price as just a few pots of paint. Head to patreon.com/Siege Studios to learn more. I love that so far, neither of you have actually said anything good about the models. It's all nostalgia. It's all nostalgia.
The thing is the models for the time, obviously technology with miniatures has come on like leaps and bounds. Like, I can't sit here and go, oh yeah, the metal models, they're better than the plastics today. They weren't. And I'll be honest with you about that. However, I think inherently, because they were all traditionally hand sculpted, they have so much more personality. Like, I think the models now are great and the quality of the sculpting is great. And as a painter, having the crispest details, defined details, and like all that stuff is amazing. And I'm not going to knock that at all in the slightest. However, one of the things for me that a lot of the older metal models have is that they have the person sculpting it. There's a personality to the model, and I can't explain that anyway. Like, the reason why the silhouettes are so iconic and the reason why the miniatures, have the personalities and have the character that they do is because of the traditional hand sculpt that went into the model and like the care and attention and like the creation of that miniature from hand. And I think that technology has sterilized that a little bit, I think. And
I think the limits of the injection molding process, I think the sculptors knew what they could sculpt and get away with, maybe put into the designs. So when you look at a lot of these miniatures, let's face it, they're all in kind of similar poses.
Yeah,
open,
of course.
With an arm
Yeah,
up and things like that.
But then I love open poses because I find them easier to paint. And like, again,
they're a bit more like I've described them as a bit more like two-dimensional. Just because the
Yeah,
casting
I know
process,
what you
they tend
mean.
to be quite flat.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look, like my favorite second ed model, like Tycho, like he's super flat. Like
It's
it's
flat,
literally
got
just, he's
pancake.
like got his back.
Yeah.
It's like, but the thing is, I think that there's a lot of things. I mean, you say that, but then having said that, like certain models, like we've got these assault terminators here, painted in the best chapter livery, I might say. But like, you could easily just have both the arms mirrored, whereas on one with lightning claws, one's like slightly out, looks like he's going to slash with it or something. Like, there were a lot of stoic. Like Joe would love it because there's loads of stoic models, obviously, in that era.
Did you tend to get options in the same way that you do now?
Not on the metals, so no. Like you'd literally,
It was just kind of
would
as
literally
what you see is what you get.
It'd be
Yeah.
what you see is what you get. Like, and this is why blisters were so good because you'd have like for example the Cyclone missile launcher Terminator. I think, but I mean, obviously we've got a picture of him here. But I think that the assault cannon Terminator, if my memory serves me well, which it might not, just because he's my age now, but like, I think the assault cannon Terminator body was the same body as the Cyclone guy, but he just had the targeter in the left hand rather than just like a pound.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you had the same host body, but the arms would be different. Or in the Cyclone's case, it'd have the Cyclone missile launcher on the backpack.
That's always been my argument for more modern design is the posing. I mean, we've done this conversation to death, but like the posing for me is a lot more limited on these because once you've got one, you've kind of got all of them. Yeah. So if you get another one, it's going to look exactly the same. Like occasionally we do commissions for people where they're like retro stuff. So that's kind of my main exposure to all of that stuff. And I remember one, I can't remember what kit it was. I think it was an Eldar kit. Might have been some like Rangers or something. But it's a squad of like 10, but there's only actually 3 sculpts. Yeah. And they're literally all they're so identical in every way.
Rangers had that. I mean, like obviously, like the army that I love from that era, like obviously I love Rangers, but like but Mordian Iron Guard, like you only had like X amount of sculpts in that range, you know, and that's where I think the two things. It was a really good era because it breeded creativity, because people who wanted to do things slightly different, you had to find a way to make them different rather than nowadays. But yeah, like so obviously we're going through. You had the Metal Terminator squad, which was fantastic. You got we're going to get onto this quite a bit in this episode, but back banners are back.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Terminator squad came with like paper banners that you'd stick on, or stick it like
stickers.
sticker ones. They're amazing.
Yeah.
The OG assault marines with the backpacks that were so heavy, they used to have to put pennies under the bases sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, if
Stop falling over.
Yeah. And then we had from the second edition box, the very first plastic combat squad, which was just 5 models from sorry, no, beg your pardon. You had a box which was a 10-man tactical squad with the Blood Angel cover art, which the red box, which had essentially it was a box of Marines out of the second ed box that was repackaged.
Is that the plastic ones?
Plastic
the
ones.
ones that are painted as Blood Angels.
Yeah, so that's the Blood Angel ones. But before that, you had the very first multi-part plastic combat squad, which was amazing because you got it's those ones, just in case you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's those. So you got the 6 Marines in a box. The legs and torsos were separate, and that was the first time that you could put a pivot on the torso of the Marine, and it came with single-handed option and obviously cross chest bolter option. So like it was really good because you could, and like the old classic knives, there was the first time you had like some like plastic knives on Marines that you could cut the handle off and stick the handle on the fist and all that kind of stuff. So it allowed a little bit of like conversion, which was great. And I love that box. It's a really nostalgic box for me, that one, because it's like the very first time that any kind of like tweaking it from the normal could be done, which I absolutely loved. And it kind of tease to what would be possible with plastics in the future. And obviously a lot of these metal models did have plastic. Do you remember you used to get like the metal torso in the blister,
plastic
and
arms.
then you get a small sprue that had like a couple of arms, maybe a plasma pistol or a bolt pistol or whatever the case may be.
But they didn't generally get options. It was just that figure's arms.
Correct,
they were plastic. I think it just sort of leans into what you were saying about they have one metal body, and then you could sell that with one set of arms, then you could have the same body with a different weapon system.
100%.
Rather than put 2 weapon systems in the one pack.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Then you pay your £2.50 or $2.75 for your model back then.
Oh God, that was the day, wasn't it? And then we had a whole load of releases of that. And talking about blisters, so I won't obviously go through all of them. We've got loads of different individual sergeant models.
Are there any like standout ones for you?
I've got to say this sergeant for me was a really important release, and I'll talk to you why. So that sergeant was fantastic, and the reason for it is because like it had a bionic arm, which you hadn't really seen on like any Marines, like a sign of an injury or something like that. And the reason why that model is this was a veteran sergeant model, distinguished by the laurels on his head. Okay, so he's got these green laurels on the head. Obviously, the other thing that this sergeant model was actually they done with the sergeant model is that when Legion of the Damned first came out, this model was used for the Legion of the Damned box, if memory serves correct as well. So they'd re-sculpted on some extra bits to then make it a Legion.
Bones.
To make it a Legion of the Damned model, which was fantastic.
Legion of the Damned have been like lost to time.
They are such an interesting faction. I know we could go on a tangent.
They just sort of teleport in, do what they need to do, and then nip out again.
They were an amazing part of 40k, and just a shame that they've not been sort of like continued on. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they're just sitting with their feet up, waiting for the right moment at the minute. But we'll see. Then a whole range of tech marines, a whole range of apothecaries, and then getting on to what you said, George, is like just to touch on the apothecary. I love the one that's I thought it was quite funny. You've got the apothecary that's got a heart gemstone on the chest, which I thought it's very Care Bears, absolutely love that. And then the chaplains. Chaplain models are always amazing.
They're the ones that are most as a newer hobbyist.
Yeah,
they are the most recognizable ones to me.
You know a chaplain when you see one.
Well, no, I mean like the actual models, because it's funny how some of these models have kind of stuck around
like
and become
poses,
a bit more
you're used
iconic.
to that shape, I suppose.
I think just some of them in general, like there's that old like captain model, which we'll get to as well, but like some of the specific blisters from back then have just stuck around and been like super iconic.
But they're fantastic. So they're honestly fantastic. I mean, like that chaplain, the one with the half his face missing, the Terminator.
Hmm.
I call it the Terminator, not as in armor. As
I
in,
know what you mean. Yeah, because
right.
he looks like
So
Arnie.
he actually is the chaplain that rode on the bike. So he came out later. Later he came out in 90. We'll get to him, but it's the same chaplain, but just on foot.
When you say this, like the same guy, or just the same sculpt?
So
or...
it's the same sculpt, but on foot.
Right.
And then later in 97, when we get to that,
okay.
you'll see that he.
Will they do just swap his legs out?
Yeah, when you'll see it. And when we go.
Okay.
Then we obviously got the Terminator chaplain. I think that model, even though it's smaller, it's a really small Terminator from obviously that era. I still think that holds up. I really do. I think
really cool,
I still, because of how iconic chaplain models are, and because of like how George is disagreeing, but I still think it holds up.
It's just his Stormbolt one makes me laugh. Is the bowels?
Yeah,
it's kind of squishy and funky.
Do you know the thing that I miss? And this is
that's NMM on there as well. Just noticed.
Yeah,
I don't know if all of these are official paint jobs.
They
some
are.
of them.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. They are all official paint jobs. Then we had Librarian Fest, because there was so many, and this is what I actually missed, like the fact that on what we're looking at, they're all got different ranks, which I think is really good, because it shows a bit of the inner workings of the librarius, and obviously all the different ranks that are in the in that department of the chapter. But yeah, you had loads of librarians, which I absolutely loved.
They're mostly like named by the looks of it.
So that's their rank.
Oh, okay.
So that's their rank of librarian. That's the rank of that. So Lexicanum is a rank of librarian, and Epistolary is a rank of librarian.
Do they still do that?
No, not really. So you just get a librarian model now.
Yeah, that's news to me. Yeah.
So these are all the ranks. This is like Tigerius is Tigerius. Like the Codicia is a rank of librarian. You know, Lexicanum, the website that we love for background and all that.
Yeah.
That's actually the reason why it's called Lexicanum, is because Lexicanum was a rank of librarian. So that's what.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but you got loads. So we've got Terminator 1, then you got like 6 in power armor. Then you've got Tigerius. And then let's get on to the main man, which is Marneus Calgar. Now this isn't his first model, I don't think. I think there was a previous one. Like, do you remember the one he was sitting down? Do you remember that one? Yeah,
sitting down.
He was.
Yeah, there was a sitting down version back in Rogue Trader. Yeah, there was a Rogue Trader version of him sitting down. But this is the first time you saw him.
Was he having a cup of tea? Or?
Yeah,
he's putting his tiny shoes up.
Putting his tiny boots on, mate. Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you know, but if you took Calgar in your army, Ultramarines live longer with Calgar.
Oh God!
I found it. He's called Lord McCrag.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it was a Lord McCrag model that then they went.
Well, I'm not going to say what it looks like he's doing, but
yeah, that they went further into the character and obviously called him Marneus Calgar, Lord McCrag. But it's the first time you saw him with the gauntlets of Ultramar, and it's such an iconic model with the raised fist, classic. Then obviously a lot of the early sculpts and poses had like either a sword raised, arm raised, or it's very, you know, if you look at a lot of the sculpts that are, you know, they are like that. But I still think as a model, it's an extremely iconic model, like from that era.
Yeah, definitely.
It looks the most modern out of the bunch.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the reason for that is because to the newer miniatures, they've honoured it quite closely. When you see the one after this. I think
because he's like, I think they've intentionally made his power armor like chunkier.
Yeah.
And therefore it's just held up better because everything's kind of done that.
Also, I don't even notice there's so much detail on him.
Yeah.
All these small little details. He's covered in little details, which is obviously quite a modern thing as well. A lot of the miniatures are covered in these little details.
But I don't know. You say that, but even I mean, you have a look at some of those librarian models. They're absolutely like.
I think of that as a second edition thing in general. They're just dripped out in more detail than is possibly necessary.
But even though they've got so much more detail, I just find them so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Like, there's just...
to me, it's always felt like more isn't always more. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
You don't need it all.
It's about the detail, not how much. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's just they had really interesting little things. Like, I love the fact, like, as a small segue, like, I love the fact that, like, on librarians now, like, when you look at like the force weapons or the swords or the axes, the filigree that's up the blade, to know that it's a psychic, it's a force sword rather than a power sword. Like they've kept that, you know, and like the yellow pipes and things like that. Like I think like those little nods just fantastic on the newer stuff that's obviously out now.
Yeah.
But like, like literally like this is my favorite era, like because it's so nostalgic for me and so memorable. So then moving on from 95, we move into 96, a bit of a quieter year. And I know we've kind of touched upon a couple of things. I just do need to dive back into 95 quickly and say, obviously, that the Whirlwind and the Razorback came out in 95. The OG Rhino chassis, so like the first Rhino chassis.
I was going to say that Rhino chassis getting used for everything.
Yeah, it's like fantastic. Obviously, like it's almost like real military. You know, using
Makes
one
sense,
chassis
right?
to then make multiple variants, which I think is a great idea. And also, as a hobbyist, you get used to that kit, so you know how to build it like the back of your hand, and it's only putting on the extra options, which then make it that specific variant, which I think is quite clever and quite good. So moving into 96. All pretty much vehicles. So we've got we'll leave the obvious biggest one till last, because I think that's the one that we'll talk probably most about. But then you've got the Predator.
God, what a tank.
Best marine tank ever.
Bright red, charging across the battlefield.
The original Predator.
So
the Annihilator, Predator Annihilator, which is my favourite, the quad las cannons, had a slightly different turret sculpt as well. So like, whereas the original Predator had more of a boxy turret, the Annihilator had a rounded turret, which I thought was quite cool, a little bit different.
Has the Predator always had the dozer blade on the front?
It was an upgrade. It was an upgrade.
Option.
Oh, okay, so that's an optional thing.
Yeah, so it's an option. So you had a universal Space Marine tank upgrade sprue, which had like the Stormbolter, the Searchlight, the Hunter Killer Missile on it, the Dozer Blade. Like it had all those. That was a universal sprue that used to come in every Marine kit, pretty much, which was great. It's very similar now to like the Guard kit, the Guard tank kits. They get like extra sprues, so it's very similar to that. We had the OG Space Marine Bike Squad. And these were upgrades. So basically, rather than releasing a brand new kit, you had just, it's the upper torso. So it's, for example, I love the Sergeant model in this kit with a raised power sword. I remember distinctly getting some legs and hacking a Marine in half because I wanted a different Sergeant. And I distinctly remember getting a random Sergeant model that I had two of, getting out the hacksaw, doing a mad Doc Grotznick operation on him and cutting him in half, and then sticking the torso of the bike sergeant on it, and it looked amazing because he was like standing there stoic, and he had his sword raised, and then like so I remember that distinctly. And then you had the you could do the same with the plasma gun in that squad, because he used the plasma gun rider. He had the gun like held like this by the front grip or foregrip. And obviously you had one arm on the bike like that. But all you do is, this was a plastic arm for the bike. So you cut the torso off, stuck that to the legs, and then you could have like a pointing arm like that or something. It was just really cool. You could do some cool little conversions with it. And then to go with that, you then had the Space Marine bike. So the plastic Space Marine bike. So the very first plastic Space Marine bike, which was really cool. I think that held up for quite a long time.
That stuck around. I remember that kit.
Yeah.
I remember that kit from when I was a kid.
Yeah, 96, mate. Like it's... Yeah, like it's just mega. So the last thing in 96, and I distinctly remember this from Games Day. Yeah. Because I spoke about it briefly last episode or one of the other episodes. It was the engineering degree Thunderhawk gunship.
Oh, is this that one?
This is that one. Yeah.
The metal
so
one.
this was a limited edition or limited run metal Thunderhawk, 40k Thunderhawk. And it came in, we'll find a picture and we'll put it on the screen. It came in this like walnut, or I don't know if it's exactly walnut, but it's a looked like walnut wooden box. Yeah. With the giant Aquila in embossed or like sort of like burnt into it, unique serial number, and you open it and it all had like a velour interior with all these compartments, and like the kit, it like if you like Meccano back in the day as a kid, it was like Meccano, but like on crazy steroids. It was just nuts.
I love that you can tell how heavy it is because in the box art photo,
look at the flight stand.
The size of the flight stand.
Yeah, it's thicker than a pool cue. It's thicker than a pool cue. Like it's like And this was, I think this was one of the ones, because what they done, I think it was 96, and someone can correct me in the comments because I was quite young at that time, but they done a. Games Day, they done the whole entire Ultramarine chapter, and we've got to put a photo.
I do remember it.
We spoke about this the other week.
We'll put it up. But like, it's a shot of the whole entire Ultramarines chapter, and every store in the country at that time painted a squad for it, and then brought it to Games Day.
What year was that?
It must have been 96, or it might be 96 or 97. But someone can correct me in the comments.
I think that's when I was working. I do remember every store had to paint to contribute to that. And what was there 2 gunships?
Yeah, so you had this one, which is in the picture here,
Yes.
and then you had another one,
That's
which
right.
had, I said about like it's got like almost like the Star Wars S foils next to
Yes.
that are like lying over the engines. This other one was like put on the flight stand like it's banking,
Yeah.
and the S foils are like
Screaming
up.
across.
It looked like it's screaming
Yeah.
across the top of the chapter.
No, I do remember that. Yeah.
And like, I just I always remember, because I remember going in my local Games Workshop at the time, and it was like after they'd been released, and someone had bought one, and it had arrived, and I remember them unboxing it, and like it was like, that scene in Indiana Jones where they like open the
ark.
the ark, yeah, demons
face melts
and
off.
stuff didn't come out, don't worry, but the golden light, I just remember seeing the whole shop like gather round, and it was like a really like memorable moment in my childhood, and like from my like hobby journey of being in the shop and seeing this thing that like we're like, oh my god, like there's only 400. I think there's only 400 of them. I think that's what it was. I think it was either 400 of these Thunderhawks are made.
If you're a miniature painter, you'll know how important it is to have the right tools for the hobby, but it doesn't matter what brushes or paints you have if you can't see what you're doing in the first place. If you want to improve your painting, contorting yourself under a small, repurposed lamp from around the house, giving yourself a backache and straining your eyes just isn't going to cut it. That's why one of the biggest upgrades I've ever made to my painting setup was my Onyx painting lamp from Native Lighting. Its articulating arm allows me to sit in the perfect painting position for those long hobby sessions, and its super bright 2200 lumen, dimmable LEDs cast soft and diffused light on my models without any harsh shadows. As someone with a very small hobby space, by far my favourite feature is its adjustable mounting clamp, which attaches to the side of my desk, maximising my free workspace. And its daylight colour balance temperature of 6500K gives you the confidence that colours you are painting are accurate and your miniatures will pop on the tabletop. To upgrade your setup to the equipment we rely on here at Siege Studios, head to the link in this episode's description or go to siegestudios.co.uk/shop.
Moving on to 1997, and this was
I think it's the final year.
It's the final year, yeah. So we've got some really cool models in this, bolstering out the bikes. We've got
so this is the Chaplain that you spoke about earlier.
So if you look, so let's start with him. So this Chaplain on bike was my first metal and plastic model. I think it's one of the first metal and plastic models that I'd done. I think it was. I can't remember, because I distinctly remember it used to come in its own individual box, just the Chaplain on his own on bike. But if you have a look at him, he is he's very similar to the. It's very similar to the one on foot. I think if memory serves correct, he had the other side of his face with the Terminator bit. I'm sure of it. Potentially, I might be wrong. But he's very, very similar, and this is where I think they were like looking at previous sculpts and maybe tweaking them slightly, and then like, because he is designed to sit on the bike, but I do remember sometimes seeing people take this guy off, and that his feet were slightly elevated. You could stick him on a base, put a little bit of an early tactical rock under the back of the foot, and you could have him standing on the base still. Kind of looked like he was on tiptoes. But yeah, he was a fantastic model, and like the fairing on the front of the bike was a metal plate, so those wings or the Aquillas on the front of the bike was a metal plate. You used to stick that on. It was like loads of metal bits that you'd stick onto like the thing. So the smoke launcher on the front, on top of the light, was like a metal part, and like the satchels and the bags at the back was a bit of metal as well.
Like a little pirate flag. That's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
That was a sticker, I think.
Yeah, that was a sticker. Yeah, they were. All the bike,
trying
all
to
the
get them to line up perfectly.
Yeah,
so
it was a sticker. Yeah, double-sided
Really?
sticker. Yeah, so it used to come.
I know they did that for the big banners, but I didn't know they did it in that shape.
For bikes. Yeah, it used to come like, it was like a weird diamond, stretched diamond. You should just fold it around the pole. So that was quite cool.
It took about 3 attempts to get the 2 points to line up exactly.
Right.
Otherwise it would be off, wouldn't it?
But that looks painted on, that scuttle on there.
Oh no, it's printed. It's printed.
Really?
Yeah, that was printed. Dude.
They were really good.
Yeah, they were really good. They
weren't very sticky and would often drop off.
No, they weren't too bad.
Especially the ones on the backpacks with the little fold over.
I used to love those.
And the Dreadnought ones as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Dreadnought ones. Yeah. We then had the attack
Good
bike.
times, man.
The attack bike came out as well, bolstering out the bike.
That's right, with the little sidecar.
Yeah, little sidecar. I loved that. Joe particularly loves that one. He loves guys in little.
Joe's
little
a really big fan and proponent of Space Marines in power armor in small vehicles operating buttons and machinery.
Yeah, loves that.
Levers.
He's a big fan of that.
He's really big on that.
Yeah,
so good.
And then we had the first ever. We had some plastic ones, so there were plastic scouts. Back in the day, there were plastic scouts.
Dipping their toe, I think.
Like little, but these are like metal. metal scout squad, which is really cool. So you obviously got the standard scout squad, which was great.
I find it funny how they're like toying with plastic around this time, but can't quite make their mind up.
I think it's because of the limitations. Like, there's certain things that like were good for like. Also, you got to take other things into consideration. Like, for example, the cost of a spin mold.
It's just a weird like hybrid period of time where you're witnessing the change.
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember from in the back rooms of the store, like the store, working in the store, that because obviously we were asking about more and more plastics and things, and I do remember GW then sort of hinting that it was a very expensive. It must have been a massively. They did say it was a massively expensive process, and for back then, it
Still
must have
is.
been. I mean, it still is now, but I wonder if those sort of molds and things are easier to produce now than they obviously were 30 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, casting and molding's not my forte at all.
No, I don't really know much either. But
spin casting is obviously the cost in spin casting is not as much as doing a plastic mold. And I think that's why I think the disparity in quality between plastic back then and metal was nominal. I think the plastics look good, but they weren't like the quality of plastics now, if that makes sense.
No.
So like,
how was like GW regarded then in general? Because now we think of GW as having the best plastics kind of industry wide. Did they have the best metals industry wide in that
cards,
time?
And I'd rather be upfront and honest about this. I didn't really dabble with any other miniatures of that type when I was the only other plastics I've had experience with were Airfix. So that was like my benchmark when I was a kid. And Airfix kits back when I was even before Warhammer, Airfix kits were like amazing. As detail and everything.
They've been good for a very long time.
So
yeah,
I didn't see GW plastics as a diminishment of quality on Airfix. They were chunkier and more bold because of the IP and because of what it was. Whereas with Airfix, you can get really fiddly, tiny little bits. Like if you're ever trying to mount a gun sight in the cockpit of a Spitfire, you know how difficult that was.
Which is quite funny, actually. A bit of a tangent, but I'm building that Skyline scale model at the minute.
Yeah,
I actually looked on the back of the box. That obviously the car is from the 90s, but even that model kit is from only a few years after the actual car came out. So the actual kit itself, that's still in production from Tamiya, is like 25 plus years old. But it holds up so much better than like gaming miniatures do of that era.
I would probably say like the metals that I was used to at the time, I didn't really have any experience or in sort of like, I wasn't aware of any other like miniature companies back then doing that kind of stuff. So I can't sit here and say they were the best metals, but from my experience, they were the only metals that I knew, and I thought they were amazing. So yeah.
No, I did dabble with some other blister packs and things that were available at the time. I think I distinctly remember getting some Eldar type looking models with sort of molded sort of cone shaped helmets. They were from a different company. I think they were just called War Gamers or something. But they wasn't for an actual game system. I think these were kind of like proxies, I suppose, at the time, and you could just use miniatures for whatever game you happen to be playing, and they just happened to look like Eldar Rangers, with cape, big capes and things like that. So a little bit, and by comparison, I still think the GW ones were better.
Yeah, I've always GW metals have always been good in my opinion. Like I think they've always. I mean, I still paint metals.
You did occasionally get a metal model that you obviously was in a box that you didn't take a look at, which was a little bit. I don't know. Sometimes the white metal would go a bit funny.
Yeah, I mean,
and you get that kind of
white. The thing with spin casting is you get different. You get different. I one of the things I used to like about the blister packs in the shops at that era was like you could go through and look for like the smoothest cast or the best cast.
Yeah, but now when you buy a box, even though it's all sealed up, full well that what's in there is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like like you've got that assurance of quality, obviously.
That was all part of the thing then, though, wasn't it? That was all part of it. Sort of looking at that huge wall of blisters, finally finding the miniature you want, and then looking through the 10 stack that was on there to find the best one out of the lot.
It's funny how they're getting away from blisters in general, because even as recently as like a couple of years ago, and there might even just still be some older models that are still in production now that are in the blisters, but they're swapping to boxes now. Like this, even individual characters. It started out with just the bigger characters like Gulliman and Abaddon and all that. And now it's like creeping down to even like a small individual character
But I think
It's always in a box now.
Yeah.
I think that's just purely because of recycling, like plastic. Again,
Oh, that's a good point.
Like
Yeah.
getting
Oh,
rid
that's a
of-
very good
getting-
point,
Getting
actually.
rid of as much plastic out the supply chain as possible, which is
I guess they stack nicer on the shelf. and
yeah,
stuff as well.
yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I just think, like I said, I've got. I mean, look, I collect older 40k, like, and sealed and don't open it and stuff, and I've got loads of old blisters. I'm like, oh god, you know what? I'd love to open this, but like, you know,
Get a bit of 90s air out of it.
I know. Tell me about it.
Just give me another hit.
yeah. But like, I don't know, like, like I just there's a certain nostalgia to it, and like, I don't know. I think you're always gonna look back to your childhood and have fondness of memories. You know, life was easier or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It's
I
funny
remember
'cause-
you say that. I had some of these kits when I was a kid because I got into the hobby proper like 6 years ago or something. But when I was about 7 or 8, I got given like a couple of Warhammer kits because I was into like the scale model planes and stuff like you were. So I had like just a couple of random Space Marine kits. And I remember then thinking that they were like kind of rubbish. This is like 06, 07 probably.
When I first got my first, like, my second edition box set, which was this, Space Marines versus Orcs, and I opened that box, and then you see like I think it was 40 Gretchen, and they're all exactly the same.
40 Gretchen. You got, I think it's 20 Orcs.
20 Orcs. They're all the
Cardboard
same
Dreadnought.
pose.
Cardboard Dreadnought.
And
yeah.
a Death Dread. You got a cardboard Death Dread.
That's
Death
it.
Dread.
That's what you got.
Crab.
You got what else did you get in there? You got a whole bunch of. You got a massive rule book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 Marines. No, you got 3 books in that box. You got the Codex Imperialis, you got the War Gear book, and
That's
then you got the rule book.
Yeah.
Can you imagine getting an 8-year-old to read a massive book like that?
It wasn't. It was
days?
3. It was 3 books. Three thinner books. Yeah.
Well, don't forget your Dark Millennium. You
worse,
got
isn't
that. So that was
Yeah.
another book. That's all you can't.
No, I loved it. Those books.
But,
Those books. I'm telling you now. Like, I mean, I do like reading, and but those 3 books that came in the second ed box of that era, I read them cover to cover. Like, it must have been like a weekly occurrence. I literally lived, ate, slept, breathed like those 3 books.
I think it's the one era in my sort of Warhammer lifespan where I think I collected almost every 40k army at the time. So I think I had miniatures from all the armies and tried to paint them a lot.
Like, it's silly little things. Like, I remember that era. I know we've gone slightly off topic, and I know time's creeping on, but like, I remember that era buying a White Dwarf when Necrons first came out. And on the front of the White Dwarf, I think War Boot, funny enough, do you remember War Boot? I picked up the same White Dwarf 20 odd years later that had been just left in someone's loft that still had the free Necron metal blister on the front of it. Yeah. Like, you just don't get stuff like that anymore. And it's
Just
like,
don't do it anymore.
it's
do they?
just
don't do that
honestly,
anymore.
like, it's just fantastic. And like, that the era of the second edition between, like I said, 93 to 97 was glorious. Like, or 93 to 98 was glorious.
I can't wait for like 20 years from now, me being like, oh, I remember 10th.
But you don't. I don't think. I don't know. Look, it's not a
Of course
negative.
we will. No, it'll be the exact same thing.
No, it's not. I don't know, because it's not negative, because it's like nowadays it's obviously the industry is way more commercialized. We talk about this all the time, and I think back then, because it wasn't so commercialized, and like going to the Games Workshop was literally like going to a gaming club, and you'd know everybody that's in there, and you'd know it, like, and it's much more insular and granular kind of like experience back in those days.
Yeah, but I just feel like it will only get perpetually more so now.
Maybe.
So by comparison, 2045 this era will seem less commercialized.
Maybe you're right, you know, because the thing is like, I was sitting there.
I remember when we didn't have any Warhammer films, and now we've got 18 different Netflix series.
I can't wait for that. Like, I can't wait.
Yeah, but don't forget as well, like, during the 90s and second edition, that's the time when like I was actually gaming every weekend, almost every night after, like, I'd finish school then, but like me and my mates would all get together on a regular, and we'd be playing Necromunda. We'd be having whole games of 40k that lasted all weekend.
Yeah.
You got so attached to these miniatures because not only did you paint with them, you were gaming with them so often.
Yeah.
And like, I know you're saying about you might remember 10th edition fondly. Will you?
I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have the same ties.
The only thing that gives me a slight kind of like, oh yeah, that maybe will be the case, is like, especially with what I'm doing at the minute, like boxes that are discontinued now going, oh, that box is amazing. I'm starting to get that little.
You're also like, I think there might be on what you said, Paul. I think I know James especially, you're quite a sentimental person anyway.
I guess so, yeah.
And I'm sure, let us know in the comments, I'm sure there's loads of people that were playing and gaming in that era that are still doing it now and prefer the modern stuff. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying,
no, I don't
think
disagree
it'll
with
be,
you. I don't disagree
it's
with
just
you.
based on what you...
I think I prefer painting the modern stuff, but boy, I had such a blast.
Do you know? I watched a couple of bits the other day, and I'm a big fan of Armageddon. So I love Armageddon as a planet and the setting and the narrative and the background to that. And it's only
not the 90s movie.
No, well, I mean, Bruce Willis is great, but still, Liv Tyler's great as well. But there you go. But I had a slight inkling the other day, very tiny little twinge. I don't know if that's the right word, but to go, do you know what? Like 4th edition or 5th edition, I really liked playing then. And I was like, should I? I was like, no, I haven't got time.
Haven't got the lifespan.
I don't think it's necessarily like the first you did of something. You're always the most nostalgic about just when the vibes were the best. So like, I remember about, if I think about like golden eras of like when I'm playing video games with my friends and stuff, it's always like this brief bubble of time where I think back to like the pandemic era, we was all playing like Warzone, and I think of that as like the best era of gaming, but it's not. It's just like subjective to where you are at that time. I get that. So if you was like mega into it in 2nd edition, there could be a different timeline, right? Where you James was getting into 2nd edition. And you didn't have all the friends that were playing it, and then come 4th edition, all of your mates got into it as well, and they were all painting, and that was when it's at its best, and you was gaming and stuff. You'd be most nostalgic about 4th edition.
Yeah, but you know, one of the things that for me like is really memorable is like things that are considered really like nostalgic now, like I don't know, like a bit of artwork or a book, or like when a certain novel came out or a certain miniature came out. I literally remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And like I don't get that same hit now with all the newer stuff. And that's obvious because it's just being released, etc. But at the same time, like I love being able to remember those times when all those other things came out.
Because you had to go to the shop to get
it.
It was an effort.
Yeah. And then like the whole thing of
that's still around to a degree though, because that's dependent on the person and like where you live and what's
true.
I mean, when I first got into 40k, when I was like 19 or whatever, that was through a store. So that was a similar experience. So I have fondness for the Dark Imperium box because I remember going to the shop. That was on the shelf. That was the edition. All the Primaris stuff I thought was sick because I was like, I remember Space Marines when I was a kid. They didn't look like this. They look really cool now. And I remember that box being like flooded on eBay and stuff. So I'd always be like trying to buy like individual bits from that box. I think I bought that box twice.
That feeling and sentiment that you're having there is how I feel about 2nd edition, but magnified loads purely because of the time disparity, as in how much time. And I think that like, because I went to a few of the games days, I went to Golden Demon, went to all these. Like all those moments back then, they literally feel like yesterday, which is sad, I suppose, because so much time has passed, even though time's manufactured or whatever. But still, it's our own. We make. I don't want to get too deep, but yeah. but it feels like yesterday, and like for me, it's so like prolific, those moments and those things, and I don't feel like I get the same hit of nostalgia now, if that makes sense.
It's just
like,
relative.
Maybe I will do in 10 years' time. I'll be like, oh, do you know what? When that Sanguinary Guard box first came out, oh my God, that was amazing. Like, maybe that will happen and that will brew.
We know from like even Iron Skull and stuff, there's plenty of young people still getting into it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And like I do think that they'll have the same fondness for whatever the current.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Because like this feeling of like the early editions and this feeling of the early models, like it's really like. I feel super privileged to have like lived through that period of like the growth of the industry and seeing all these things that we take for granted now, like the second like John Blanche artwork, like oh wow, it's amazing, like But I was there when it first came out, seeing it in the shop with a row of all these boxes with that cover art.
James, I was there the day the John Blanche artwork came out.
I remember getting on the train, going to the store, like traveling for half an hour on the train to go to the Southend store, waiting in a queue outside with everybody else, and the chap. The manager at the time coming out and is going, "Are you ready?" And then opening the door and everyone going in, grabbing it, and then having it under your arm back on the train, not waiting to get home so you can open it and just get everything out. Great. Yeah.
If you're a fan of the podcast and want to support the show, why not check out our collection of merch at the Siege Studios shop? Our custom designs are available in everything from fitted t-shirts to hats and jumpers. Everything is made from soft, high-quality organic cotton with prints that are made to last. I've been wearing mine around the studio for over a year now because I love how it fits and feels, and it's still as fresh as the day I got it. Plus, everything is in stock and shipped to you directly from us. None of that print-to-order nonsense. And just for you podcast listeners, you can get 10% off of your merch order and a free sticker pack by using the code POD10 at checkout. So to order yours now, head to the link in this episode's description or go to siegestudios.co.uk/shop. Okay, so as you may or may not know, we do monthly painting challenges with our Paint Perspective / Siege Studios community over on our Discord. So link in the description for that. So what we like to do is every single month we give you a different challenge. And the idea is to paint something new from a faction that you may not have painted before. Hopefully get some brush skill improved and do something fun with the community. We like to go through them once a month and do a bit of a roundup of all the submissions. And we're actually on time this month. We've been a bit delayed with the last few because we've had a lot of events and stuff going on. But no, we're on time this time. So this is going to be a roundup of all of the submissions for June. And the challenge was hashtag JunespiteGitz. And the idea was to paint anything, not just JunespiteGitz, but goblin themed, generally speaking. And we said this didn't have to be a whole miniature. It can just be like little basing bits or like a little test piece, unfinished model even. Just give it a go. So we're going to go through a roundup of these, and then I will announce the next challenge once we've gone through those. Do you guys have any honourable mentions? It's getting more and more, I'll add, it's getting more and more difficult to show every single one on the podcast because there are so many submissions. When we first started doing this, we would get like 10. And now we get like 40, 50 submissions every time. So
keep it up. It means you're pushing your painting.
So apologies if you haven't been featured, but we try to get as many on screen as we can, but there is just so many of them. So it's still, regardless, thank you for participating nonetheless. Right, guys, what you got?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've picked Mr. Ivor, and he's got his Squig Rider. I love this model. The movement in it and the colours he's picked is so bright. It's so 90s.
Very fitting.
But yeah, it's really fitting. The bright blues, the mega reds. Yeah, and the obviously the goblins hanging on for dear life on top there. Look great. Love it.
I went for Prince of Comera. I absolutely love the muted palette to an extent, but then there's some really vibrant colours, and the colours work really well. You've got blue and red obviously complementary, and then you've got the purple harmonious to the red, and the green obviously complementing the red. So it's a really good set of colours on there. And then obviously there's like demonstration of skill. So you've got like the checkerboard on the hem of the shawl or the cloak. I love the subtlety of that, the glow effect from like I'm trying to work out, is that like a glow fly or something in like a lantern, or is that? Yeah, it's got like wings coming out of it. So yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's really cool. Like I think it's an amazing model, and the skin looks great. I love the little bright little eyes as well. I think it's brilliant. So yeah, just really well executed. And he put in quite a few little updates as they were doing it, and just looks really good. Yeah, just really liked it.
Nice. My pick is St. Sigurd's, who has done, I think, suitably for this episode.
Yeah,
very retro goblin.
Very
little square base with the goblin green, and the painting is very nice and smooth. And I think the purple's quite vibrant, and it complements the green nicely.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's really nice.
I've not seen that colour scheme before. I don't know if that's an official thing or not, but new to me nonetheless.
It's gone mental with colour there.
Gone mental with colour. It's very vibrant.
I'll tell you what, that base room is absolutely vibrant. Look how bright that is. That is amazing.
Yeah. So awesome. So thank you to the community for submitting for the monthly challenge. If you want to participate in July's monthly painting challenge,
go on then.
Go on. What is it?
It's hashtag July-Dineth Deepkin.
Oh
wow.
My God.
Which, fittingly, have recently had some previews from Warhammer. So, what is a otherwise unforgotten faction has actually been sort of given a bit of a...
Get your fish on.
Anything.
So get, as Paul said, get your fish on. So anything fish-themed, nautical themed. We're talking boats.
Fish fingers.
We're talking tactical crabs. All of the above, all right? It doesn't have to be Idoneth per se, but Idoneth is good.
Octopi.
Did Tau come into that as fish people? Because that is the best.
You've got,
that's the best
you've got to give it effort.
curveball.
You've got to give it effort.
Well, they're fish people. It's the best curveball.
No, you've got to give it
ever.
effort. If they're on like a water base or something, then maybe we'll let
Are they
someone slip through the
surfing?
cracks.
That's what
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly, Paul.
Yeah.
Now you're thinking like a hobbyist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So link in the description to the Discord. It's completely free. And we do fun challenges in there like that. And you can also chat to the community. You can chat to us. It's very, very vibrant community over there. I think there's like 2,500 members now.
Yeah, it's
a lot of
wow.
people.
Pretty,
A lot of people chatting in there.
It's been good.
So if you want to mingle with some other hobbyists and I guess Siege fans and such, then
Jump
you
in.
know the place.
Yeah.
Awesome. I was going to say we jump over to the hobby hack, but we've done the hobby hack.
Yeah, I know.
We're doing the mid-episode hack.
Yeah,
Just doing them willy-nilly now.
Mid hack. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good.
Nice. Okay. Well, on that note, then I guess we'll jump over to the post show, which is benefit for our patrons. So if you want to get access to extended versions of this podcast without ads, we also have an RSS feed. We do an extra 20, 30 minutes after the show. It's an exclusive post show for our patrons. So if you want to get access to that, in addition to hundreds of high quality PDF tutorials, our new extended video tutorials, and a whole bunch of other benefits, including like hobby hangouts, our critique clinic, all that good stuff, check the link in the description of this episode. Otherwise, a massive thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
So you got an app, all right, okay, and the app tells a story. Yeah, so you go.
Sorry to interrupt. That's the most
app?
un-James thing
Yeah,
I've
I'm confused.
ever heard.
It's almost like a fantasy murder mystery.
It sounds like something Scooby-Doo would